Welcome back to Fox Soul's Black Report, your daily source for black news, views, and opinions. Joining us now to discuss the killing of Daunte Wright and what's happening in Minneapolis is founder of the Racial Justice Network, Nikema Levy-Armstrong, and Minneapolis community organizer Toussaint Morrison. Welcome back, and of course, we are grateful to have you back, especially under these tragic circumstances. How are you guys doing today? Can you guys hear me?
Our hearts are heavy.
Doing as well as can be right now.
Here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know it's tough right now. We'll start with you, Nikema. Can you tell us where you are right now and what's going on? Are you guys both in the same area, by the way?
We're both in Brooklyn Center, but we're in two different areas. I am at a demonstration happening right now outside of the Brooklyn Center Police Department. And Toussaint is at a memorial site with the family of Daunte Wright.
Okay, and Toussaint, so what is the mood like there? What is the energy like right there going on?
The energy at the memorial site is pretty quiet. It's calm. A lot of people are crying. It's pretty sad.
Yeah, it really is. And can you give us an update on what happened between law enforcement and Daunte Wright? Now, we've seen the video, but are you guys hearing anything different being there?
Well, we actually had a meeting this morning with the mayor of Brooklyn Center, the police chief, the city manager, and then we met with the city council this afternoon. And when we got there this morning, they told us that Daunte Wright had been pulled over. They claimed that it was for an unspecified traffic violation. And I demanded that the police chief get more specific and tell us whether or not an air freshener hanging on Daunte Wright's mirror was the pretext for the traffic stop. And what the police chief told us was that Daunte Wright allegedly had expired tabs. And once they pulled him over for expired tabs, then they saw the air freshener hanging on his mirror. So of course, we raised the question of how in the midst of a pandemic are you focused on somebody having expired tabs when it's hard to even get appointments at the DMV? Right, and when there should be more serious priorities for the police at this time rather than having multiple officers pulling over a young black man. As a civil rights attorney, I believe that this was a case of racial profiling because Daunte Wright was a young black man driving a really nice car.
Yeah, and for an air freshener that you can buy, but yet they have a problem with him having it hanging inside the car. It definitely does not make any sense. Now, Nikema, you mentioned earlier you were with the mayor. Did you have a chance to meet with him personally?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I met with the mayor along with several other activists and organizers here in the Twin Cities. And we also attended the press conference that the mayor and city officials held earlier today. We asked questions at the press conference, such as why hasn't the officer who killed Daunte Wright been fired for what she did? And we called out the police chief and the city manager for the excessive force used against protesters last night outside of the police station. We were out here and police used rubber bullets. They also fired tear gas at us, as well as flashbang grenades. It was a very terrifying situation. They turned off the lights outside of the police station, putting us all in an extreme amount of danger.
Yes.
And since that time, what has happened was that we demanded that the city manager be fired because he has oversight over the police department, and he was fired this afternoon.
Oh, he was fired. Okay, so that's a great update because after the police chief made his statement during the press conference, he kind of walked out, and obviously people became upset about that. Do you feel like that he should have gave more detail of what was going to happen to the officer or been more apologetic? What do you think could have happened that have made that situation better, if anything?
Absolutely. So the city manager's been fired. We have also demanded the police chief be fired. I hope that that's in the works. But the police chief was still arrogant, still very defensive, and did not seem to show any real remorse for what happened to Daunte Wright. He made excuses. She claimed that she mistook her taser for a gun, which makes absolutely no sense.
None whatsoever. Toussaint, do you think police chief was forced to release the body cam to try and ease the tension in the city?
I believe the narrative is always extremely powerful. And I don't want to use the word forced. I don't believe that they had a choice in what happened. They had to explain it somehow, in some way. And we saw this happen with Dalal Eid. They had no choice but to release body cam footage of what happened, because of all the questions that the community had. And so in this case, as I say again, the narrative is paramount. How will they spin this narrative? And we're hearing the word accident being used. It was an accident. And in using the word accident, it absolutely 1000% marginalizes the life of Daunte Wright. Because if this were to happen to, let's say, a white man who is 20 years old in Edina, there would be outrage. There would be absolute outrage right now, and they would not stand for the word accident to be involved in the murder and public execution of one of their community members.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm glad you brought that up, because I've saw a video, and a lot of people are posting on social media right now, of this white man that got put over by police who totally disrespected him the way he's talking to him, puts his car in drive away, and they're yelling, they're saying don't do it, but they did not take the same action that they took what just happened to Daunte, which is so unfortunate. So I believe it is true. If it was someone a different color, it would be a whole different situation. But we do know this: the city is already on edge because of the trial. The latest incident has done a lot of damage as far as mood to the city. Is there going to be more protests? Has that simmered down? What's the heat check on that?
Well, there's protests
going on right now. There will definitely be more protests, like, down the pipe.
Okay. For sure. So this is something that's going to continue to matter, because are they still having a curfew going on there as well?
Yes, there's a curfew at 7 o'clock, but right now there are hundreds of people outside of the Brooklyn Center Police Department. And people are not ready to go home, even though the curfew starts at 7 Central Time.
Got it. Okay. And this question for both of you guys: do you know if the police officer who shot Daunte is still on duty? Can you tell our soulmates that? Do you have that information?
Last I heard, it was paid administrative leave.
She's on paid administrative leave.
Oh, so still getting paid. Taking a life. Okay. Toussaint, when it comes to protests, are they planned, and what does justice look like for Daunte Wright?
For the protests, and Nikema knows this better than I do, yes, they are planned, and then some of them you cannot plan for. If you remember when George Floyd was murdered by the MPD, there was an entire group of people outside of the 5th Precinct. That was not a Facebook event. That was not, put into a Google Calendar. That was people just meeting up sheerly out of their own vitriol, depending on the intentions. That was people meeting up regardless of what was planned or scheduled or organized. What's going to happen with this is, and this is as Nikema told me at the beginning of all this is a case where you embrace the uncertainty. And this, you're going to see a binary reaction. Right now, I'm next to a vigil. Right now, Nikema's at the police department. And somewhere else, there's probably other folks organizing that are offline.
Yeah. Nikema, what does justice look like for Daunte Wright to you?
Well, I don't know if he can ever have true justice, because he's not here to tell his story. But some semblance of justice would be an immediate firing of the officer who killed Daunte Wright. It would be some form of compensation for his family as a result of what they experienced. The police chief needs to be fired, and there needs to be an overhaul of policing in the city of Brooklyn Center.
Yes, that is so true. I want to thank you both for joining us today. We'll check back in with you as the situation develops. Please be safe out there, and thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Great interview, Romeo, yet again.
It's intense out there.
It is. Yes, yes. And we needed that. We needed that information.